Good morning, happy Friday. It's Tim Wild in the woods. And it's week 42. Week 42. Flying on, isn't that? And if any of you have watched Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you'll know that 42 is the answer to the universe, to everything, to the question of life eternal. I'm not sure that we'll get to the bottom of all of that this morning, but we're going to have a look at a few little things anyway. I thought I'd be stationary and calm and grounded and peaceful this morning, rather than kind of like yomping through the woods, because grounding is going to be my job this weekend as I head off to Portugal with Diana Cooper, Mia Kafkios and Adrian Lee to anchor these planet-changing energies that are coming in. And do you know, I'm sure I've been preparing for this for a long time. I know on the kind of the promotional media videos that I kind of mentioned that the Intergalactic Council have been preparing me to do this specific task for a year. Well, actually, it's been more like 30 years. I had a look at the timeline of kind of energies and what is required to do an anchoring or a grounding of this magnitude. Now, I've asked myself the question many times, what kind of qualifies me personally to do that kind of job? Also it's been mentioned, like, am I the only person in the world that could do it? And the answer to that is I'm sure that I'm not. There are bound to be other people that can do tasks that are this specific, with energies that are this specific, but I'm the one that happens to be going there on the day. And so for 30 years, and this is just a little bit about me, for 30 years I've trained in raising my light quotient. I've mentioned before in much earlier videos that I always seem to have been I've been gifted with this drive to push all the time, and never to kind of be happy or to stay still. Some of that might be programming, some of it might be trauma, or it could just simply be an ambition, because we all have spiritual ambition. If you turn around and say to me that you don't, then you're not being human about it. We've all got this drive at this moment to be somewhere somewhere further along the pathway, say in a higher frequency, in a happier situation, in a higher vibration. And where in actual fact the job that is required of me and of all of us on Sunday is going to be grounded, heart-centered stillness. So for years I've pushed my light quotient, and I've done this under the kind of the training techniques of Dr. Joshua David Stone, who actually happens to be one of my guides. I always found it a little bit kind of sad that, after doing all of this incredibly high level ascension work, bringing through this incredible information, that Dr. Stone would then step off and into the higher realms in 2012, just before the fun begins. But obviously that was for a very specific reason. So I've been using his methods, I've been using the methods kind of brought forward by Diana Cooper and the stuff that I've been guided to do myself, to constantly be pushing my light quotient further, higher, wider, and than is comfortable, than it should be. And that's been a constant process. And so now looking at the kind of the quantity of the light, the kind of the constitution of the light package that I'm anchoring on Sunday with the assistance of everybody around me, that's why. And there's also, when you go and do work like this, it's not just kind of the shiny bit on the day. There's also the kind of the small print, which says that I'm then going to be responsible for holding that energy for 3 years afterwards. So that in itself is a big undertaking, and I'm well aware of what's going on with it. So for those of you that have checked in and that have asked and have kind of tested the boundaries of the validity of what we're doing, all of your questions have been very much appreciated, because to just be fully accepting of everything that's kind of thrown at us, of which there is much, is incorrect. And as I said in my last video, the previous video, the walk and talk, you know, when any of us are presented with information, whenever any of us are maybe presented or offered space by a new master, a new angel, anybody coming into our fields, you take it through the boundaries, the checks. And I always use my heart center whenever I'm going through the motions of, like, is something correct? Is that right for me? Is that information in alignment with my pathway, with my trajectory? It goes straight through my heart center now, and that's pretty foolproof. So tomorrow I get on the plane to Portugal. I do believe everybody else is there already enjoying the rain, because apparently it's raining in Portugal at the moment, and it's kind of turned from 30 degrees to being quite Octoberish there. So, but that's by the by. On the day we will have this incredible light coming in from Helios, from Andromeda, from Lyra, and it will be anchored in. And for those of you that are tuning in and assisting, I mentioned in last week's video about the diamond shaped grid. Now, when I mean a diamond shaped grid, you can make a very simple grid with 4 points, north, south, east and west, and make that into a diamond shape. So that's a simple but powerful working geometry, and that's probably the geometry that we'll be aligning with on Sunday when we do the Monadic merge meditation. So that's just a little bit about me and a little bit about what I'm doing and my thoughts on the whole situation before we head over there. The world appears to be, despite all of this incredible light coming in, there's an increase in turmoil. So I want to talk a little bit about the what we're being presented with on that level at the moment. Now, there are a set of protocols that occur or have been occurring with almost the destruction of the control matrix. So for those of you that might not be familiar with the term, the control matrix is where we've been living, where we've been schooled for thousands and thousands of years. It could also be referred to as the third dimension, where all of us were born into. But that no longer exists. We're kind of deconstructing that previous scenario and moving into a much higher one. Diana Cooper years ago likened it from moving from a small house into a mansion, but you've got to take all your stuff with you, but that stuff has to be vibrating at the frequency that the mansion exists at. So if it doesn't exist, if it's a lower frequency construction, you've either got to change that, you've got to work on it, you've got to alchemize it, or it's got to go in the skip, basically. So that's what's very much happening at the moment. But outside, it's almost like Custer's last stand. So what you're seeing is attempts that have been made to lock this planet down, to control people's thinking via fear, to present scenarios that will cause us to move into a state of fear and survival on a permanent basis. None of these worked, and they were never going to work because of the frequency of our planet. So what we're being presented with now is almost the last box of tricks, which is conflict. Okay, so you and I and everybody else will be aware of the rising conflicts that are going on in certain parts of the world. I will not ever mention direct specific places or who's bad, who's good, or anything like that. It's simply what is occurring in the world. And the work that we do together can either send light to a situation to assist it to move into a higher state, or we can send fear. So what we're being asked to do by the media, what we're being asked to tune into, we're being asked to take sides, to pick who's our champion and who's the baddie. And this again comes from that very polarized state of thinking that we are all training to move on from. And I was watching, there's a guy that I like watching on YouTube called Nigel Watson, he's spiritual, but he doesn't know it. Basically, he's a religious man who's moved from the UK to Finland and has a very, very good grasp on politics and economics. And he's been calling out what's been going on around the world since 2020 in very clear, unequivocal language. So if you fancy going and checking him out and listening to him, it's fabulous to hear this very crystal clear take on it. And so he said very, very similar thing to me. It's the last box of tricks. When you start to see the news talking about conflict, be in fear, war is coming, that's when you know that the panics, the panic buttons are being pressed by the overseers of the control matrix, because it is the very last thing that can be conducted around this world that will induce a state of codependency, fear, survival in all of us. But what's so lovingly refreshing to see, or so I'm overjoyed every time I see it, is when I witness people seeing things for what they truly are. And in many cases now we're seeing without an emotional attachment. So we understand the dynamics of a situation, we understand what's going on, but we're not emotionally attached to it. We're not invested in it in a way that we are pouring our anger in, or pouring our fear or our hurt or our pain in any way, shape or form. And that, my lovely souls, is exactly the direction that we need to be going in. We need to be assisting with this. We need to be bringing the light into those situations. So this grand anchoring that we're doing on Sunday in Portugal, this will be our version of a remedy for situations like this around the world. Because when you go into a state of higher consciousness, when you create something such as a monadic merge, this shifts not just the consciousness of people collectively, but it replaces the timeline with a higher option. You know, we've got all of these different options of these timelines that we invest ourselves into. And what's been made very clear to me at the moment is that we are at a point where it is essential that we pick the correct timeline. And so, referring again a little bit to this incredible workshop that Diana Cooper's hosting in Portugal, this creates an overall timeline which is so big it's almost difficult not to step into it. And that is being supported by the cosmos, by the angels, the archangels, the ascended masters, all the beings of light who are contributing to moving this ascension process forwards with as much clarity as possible. So once again, I kind of refer to using what you have, your mastery, the presence of the I am within you, to bring in, to anchor, to remove the veils from the third eyes around the world that are still they're still covered, or they may not. That might actually be a misinterpretation. Tuning into it, I see everybody, as this goes across the board, so many people around this world with the capacity to see. They've had the veils removed, but the third eyes don't appear. The third eye doesn't appear to be engaged. It doesn't appear to be working, and that's due again to programming, to hypnotism, to being immersed for so long in the third dimensional matrix that coming out of that takes like unprogramming, a deprogramming, a recircuiting of the boards, or the everything that exists within us. So it's not an overnight process, and I know that many of us have begun to feel very frustrated with what is apparently a lack of progress. But I'm seeing so much progress at the moment. It's making me very hopeful, and I'm almost to the point of being maybe a little bit joyous about what we are managing to achieve. And I'm not going to feel guilty about that joy when there is, there's many people that say, well, how can you feel joy when there's so much bad in the world? That's where we are at the moment on this timeline, in this planetary shift. And again, this question was asked in a workshop that I run very recently. How do you explain to the youngsters, say, for example, the 20-year-olds who have seen enough to maybe be, breaking free of their initial conditioning, if there was any, to be educated, to have their own views upon the world, and are thinking about their own futures, because who wouldn't be at this moment in time? How do you explain to these souls that everything's going to be okay? How do you actually put that into clear, concise words that it might look like this at the moment? There might be conflict here, there might be control here, there might be overzealous, autocratic governments in that particular part of the world. But the more that we see these scenarios being not forced upon us, they're happening, and they will continue to happen. The more people wake up around us, the more third eyes that were kind of previously dulled will suddenly switch on as the conditioning vanishes and they begin to see. So I suppose I'm speaking these words now for maybe that particular demographic, the age group that are looking at this world and going, well, how can everybody be saying that this is going to be all right? How can you be proceeding with joy in your heart at the moment? It's a case of trust. It's a case of looking at it from the point of view, or the way I'd explain it to them would be, you have incarnated on this planet to be part of the new world. You haven't incarnated down here to be trapped, to be imprisoned, to be part of something which will never go any further than the vibration of fear and control. That is a past learning platform that we've all participated in, and change is upon us. And I suppose if those words aren't a comfort, then you just have to let them ride it out and kind of learn about what's going on this planet and this world for themselves, but with maybe the guidance of tuning out of the sources of information that are based in fear. So that kind of surmises my talk this morning. I'm talking a little bit about, the trip to Portugal, the magnitude of the job that's going to be done on Sunday, because it is a big one. It is a big one. And a lot of preparation has been done by me physically, and I know Mia's worked incredibly hard. Diana Cooper has been doing this job for longer than I care to imagine, and has done so much to bring attention to the spiritual world on this planet. And it would be an honour to be working alongside her on Sunday to do this anchoring and to bring this light in. And so if I could again once ask all of you, if you are participating on Sunday, to just be tuned in to assisting us to ground that energy in, to be open to this light of the monadic merge that is going to be happening not just to us but to you as well. And wherever you are, keep your heart open, keep that beautiful energy rolling through you, ground, get out in nature. I asked the trees earlier on how they could help me, and they said, yep, we'll be there. Ground yourselves in, use the root network system which exists all around the world. My tree here will be communicating with the trees that exist in Portugal, where I'm going to be doing the work, and I will see you on the other side. I will be recording a video from Portugal on Monday morning, a meditation Monday, so I will see you then. Sending you all so much love. Bye for now.